Today I'm going to guide you step by step setting up Home Assistant in a virtual environment using Proxmox, a Type 1 hypervisor. Previously I've used VirtualBox, but after experiencing various limitations and headaches, I've moved over to Proxmox. In this video I'll walk you through the installation steps and explain why it's a better choice for running Home Assistant long term. So why Proxmox? Let me give you a quick story about how I started out. Initially, I had Home Assistant running on a Raspberry Pi, which was running beautifully for a good few months, probably about 6 months, and then all of a sudden, this failed on me. My Home Assist had now just completely bricked itself due to a failure of the SD card. Now, very, very luckily, that day I had made a full backup and I'd also exported the full backup, so I was able to then transition from running on the Raspberry Pi to quickly firing it up on VirtualBox before transitioning back to using the Raspberry Pi again. So then I got myself one of these, a solid state drive and USB adapter for the Raspberry Pi. Now the Raspberry Pi was a bit more reliable and it was doing its job. But then as I started adding more and more automations, I just found they were really slow and taking much longer to respond than they previously were. So I needed something a little bit more powerful. So I moved back over to a more powerful machine running VirtualBox, and that solved the automations. They're running a lot smoother, more responsive, and I thought, great, I've solved the problem now. Until the Windows update started to kick in, and for no reason at all, the machine would just reboot. Even if you turned off updates, they would just keep on rebooting. And I found myself one evening lying down, about to go to sleep, and the lights wouldn't turn off. It was horrible. It was absolute hell. I had to get back out of bed and manually press a button to turn the light switches off. That was what did it for me. That was enough. I realised VirtualBox is rubbish. So then I realised I needed a better solution. So what do we need to get started? Let's begin. So the first thing you're going to want to do is head over to the Proxmox website, go to the download section, and then download the ISA. Once that ISA is downloaded, we then need some software to create a USB bootable drive. I'm going to go to this Etcher website. And then if you just scroll down and then just click download, and then download Etcher for Windows, click on that, and then just wait for that to finish downloading and then install it. So now I'm going to install Balena Etcher. Just click agree. Once that's downloaded and installed, it should present you with this page. So we're now going to navigate to the ISA of the Proxmox image. So I'm going to click on this and do open. Then you're going to insert a USB drive and you're going to select that drive as the target. I'm using this one. And then I'm going to go select, and then I'm going to click select, and then flash. Once that's finished flashing, you can just close that window. What you'll need to do next is plug the USB bootable drive into the computer you're going to be installing Proxmox on and boot up into the BIOS. Now you're going to need to revert to the manufacturer's manual as to which key you need to press to get into those settings. Now what you can see here, the menus aren't going to be exactly the same as your BIOS, but I'm just going to show you what changes you need to make or ensure are already set. So you're going to need to make sure that bootable from USB is enabled. So I'm just going to go to boot options, just make sure USB storage is checked, and you might want to change the order as well, just so it boots the USB first. If you happen to have an option here after power loss, change that to on, so that way if you did accidentally knock the machine and then it turns back on, you know it's going to power back on automatically. Then you're going to go to Secure Boot. Now, if you're using 8.1 or above of Proxmox, you shouldn't need to change this, but if you're using an older version or you're getting problems, you may want to change it so that legacy support is enabled and Secure Boot is disabled. So I'm just going to leave it like that, and I'm just going to go back to the main, and I'm just going to save and exit. Once it has successfully booted from the USB stick, we're going to use the graphical install choice. Just accept the end user license agreement. Click next again. Choose your regional and language options and then click next. Give it a password. Type in an email address and then click next. And now you're just going to give your host machine a name. Make note of the IP address it's showing because you're going to need it later on, and then click next. And then click install. Once that's finished installing, it should have rebooted itself, and eventually it's going to take you to a menu like this. So what you're going to need to do is make note of that IP address and the port number, and you're then going to want to open a web browser from another machine to connect to the Proxmox host. So I'm now going to paste that IP address, followed by the port, which is 8006, and hit enter. You might get a warning if you just go to advance and do continue to. And then you're just going to sign in. Now it's not clear because you didn't actually set the username, but it defaults just to root, and then it's whatever password you set. And then click login. You're going to get this warning multiple times, and it's just telling you you don't have a valid subscription. It's not because you've got a dodgy copy. This software is free. It's just because you haven't got a subscription, there'll be a list of options which you're not going to be able to use. So just click OK to that warning. Now that we've logged on to the Proxmox web portal, the first thing we're going to want to do is just see if there's any pending updates. So we're just going to click on Proxmox, and you're going to navigate to updates, and we're just going to click upgrade. In this case, the system's already up to date, so I don't need to do anything. Now we're going to run a couple of scripts here, and I think it's only fair I give the credit to smarthomescene.com, who have wrote a really good guide that references these scripts. I'll put the links in the description. Now this next step is optional. We're going to run a post-install script, and one of the benefits of this is it's going to remove that subscription nag. So I'm just going to click on Proxmox, open the shell, and then I'm going to paste this script here and hit enter, and you're just going to agree to all of the prompts. This should take no longer than 5 minutes, and once it's finished, the last step will say completed post-install routines. The next script we're going to run, which will install Home Assist onto Proxmox, is going to do the following. It's going to automatically find and download the official KVM Home Assistant image. It's going to define the user settings and import the disk, set the boot order. It's also going to set the VM to start automatically. It's going to install with 4 GB of RAM, 32 GB storage, and enable 2 CPUs, along with tweaking the installation process a little bit. Again, credit goes to smarthomescene.com. I will link the page to their guide in the description. So we're going to navigate back to Proxmox, go to the shell, and we're going to paste this code in here and then hit enter, and then just agree to all of the prompts you receive. After about 10 minutes, the install should have finished, and you'll notice here as you scroll down to Proxmox, you'll see something beginning with 100 and then the Home Assistant name. If you go to the Summary tab, it may not load straight away, and make note of the IP address. This will be the IP address of your Home Assistant server, because you'll need that to log onto the portal. Now, before we go on to that portal, if you've got any USB devices connected, go to the Hardware tab, click Add, go to USB device, check USB port, and then just select whatever USB device it is. You may have a USB Zigbee. Click Add, and just a note, you must reboot the Home Assistant server for that USB device to be recognized. For those of you who want to go through the installation process manually, the first thing you're going to need to do is head over to the Home Assistant web page. From here, you're going to look for KVM Proxmox. You're not going to download this, you're just going to right click and copy the link. Navigating back to the Proxmox portal, you're going to select Proxmox and you're going to click on Shell, and you're going to type in wget space, and you're going to paste in that link and then hit enter. This is going to download the image into the Proxmox server. Now that the download has finished, the next step is to extract the image, and you're going to be using unxz command followed by the name of the image. This is the part which is the name of the image. So I'm just going to type in that command and then hit enter. And now that image has been extracted. Now before we can run the next command, we need to first create the VM, which is done through here. And then we're going to give it a name. If you check Start on Boot, and then click Next. For OS, you're going to select Do Not Use Any Media and click Next. For machine, you're going to select Q35. For BIOS, you're going to select UEFI. For storage, you're going to select local-LVM. Uncheck pre-enrolled keys. Click Next. For disks, we're not going to need them, so you're going to click Delete and then click Next. For CPU, if you change the cores to 2 and then click Next. And then for memory, we're going to use 4096, which is 4 gig, and then click Next. For network, I'm just going to leave it as default settings and click Next. And before you click Finish, just make sure Start After Created is unchecked. So just leave that as that is and click Finish. Now that we've created the VM, we need to import the disk which we extracted. And you're going to be running qm import disk 100, which is the VM name, and then reference the image name and then local LVM. So I'm just going to paste that in and then hit enter. Now that's extracted, you're going to go onto the VM here, go to the hardware tab, and you should now see unused disk. You're going to click on that. If you've got an SSD drive, you can click discard, and then you're just going to click add. And now the disk has been added. If you now go to options, make sure start on boot is already checked. If not, go to boot order, and you're going to want to check that SCSI and uncheck the other two, then click OK. Now you can finally start the VM. If you go to the console tab and wait for it to load up, this may take about 30 seconds if you've only just started it. And you can see there we've got the IP address of the Home Assistant server, which we're going to need to connect to the web portal. And if I type in that address followed by the port 8123, it should take me to the Home Assistant portal. So we just got to wait a little bit for it to finish setting itself up. Now we are going to access the Home Assistant web interface for the first time, and it's going to present you with a welcome screen. If you were running a previous version of Home Assistant, you could restore from backup. Otherwise, you're going to create your smart home, and it's just going to prompt you to create a username and password. I'm just going to very quickly create an account. I'm just going to leave everything as default. Just going to set a country. Click next. Finish. Now that you've created an account and it's taken you to the overview page, the first thing you're going to want to do is set a static IP address. so that it doesn't keep changing. And I would also recommend setting a DHCP reservation from your home router. So we're going to go to Settings, go to System, go to Network, click on IPv4, and just change that checkbox from automatic to static, so now it's always going to have that IP, and just hit save. I'm going to leave you to do the rest of the Home Assistant setup yourself, and hopefully it all goes as planned. Hopefully you've now got Home Assistant running in Proxmox, giving you a more powerful and reliable solution. If you found that video helpful, let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to receive more smart home automation tutorials. See you in the next one.